heads of all religious denominations, former parliamentarian and Speaker of the OECS Assembly, Ms. Renee Batiste, lecturer, the Department of History and Philosophy, the UWI Cave Hill Campus, Barbados, Dr. Cleve Scott, head of site, the UWI Global Campus, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dr. Risa Noel McBarnett, members of the business community and civic organizations, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome you to this, the third part of a three-part series of lectures organized by the UWI, University of the West Indies Global Campus, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The Politics and the Poetics of the Spiritual Baptists, 1849 to 1979. I'm not sure those of us who had the privilege of attending the previous two sessions. On Thursday, 6th of March, at the Calder Primary School, we had Dr. Gary Michael Denny presenting on the morning ground, the religious imagination of the spiritual Baptists, 1849 to 1979. On Thursday, the 3rd of April, at the UWI Global Campus, St. Vincent, we had Dr. Adrian Fraser presenting Mackintosh's Advocacy for the Rights of Spiritual Baptists, 1849. Spiritual Baptists have gone through a lot of struggles over the years. So I think this is fitting that we should have these sessions so that the spiritual Baptists, the members who are there today, would learn what spiritual Baptists is really all about and where we've come from. To give our opening prayer, I would call on Mother and Deaconess Edwina Samuel of the Mount Zion Spiritual Baptist Church, Rose Hall.
A pleasant good afternoon to each and every one of us who are here this evening. A special good afternoon to the heads of the table. And deacon, deaconess, pastors, and all well-wishers, brothers and sisters, a pleasant good afternoon. As I was asked to bring the opening prayer, I will do so in no other name but in the mighty name of Jesus. Father and God, I give you thanks. I give you all the praise, the honor, and the glory for what you have done unto us this evening. I'm thanking you, Lord God, for the rising of the morning, that made a shade even unto this present hour. I worship you, God. Father God, you are the Alpha, you are the Omega. reason why. I'm asking you this evening to take control, oh God. Father God, this evening, nothing of ourselves we can do. Lord God, we're depending upon you. I bring the spiritual Baptist this evening, God, from far and near this evening. Father, you know this, we struggled, those who struggled from before. I'm asking you, oh God, you know the reason why. And now you bring us to get our freedom this evening. Free us in Jesus' name, oh God. Father, you know the fight, and you say victory is ours this evening. Father, this evening I'm asking you, oh God, to help us to watch and pray. Help us, Lord, to labor till the Master come. Father and God, this evening I'm asking you, oh God, to bless and sanctify us this evening. In no other name. In no other name this evening, but in your mighty and precious name. Amen.
I'm going to ask you to please remain standing while we have the national anthem. I will now call on the doctor, the great doctor. Dr. Risa Noel McBarnett, Head of Site, UWI Global Campus, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. She will come and welcome us all here.
Heads of all religious denominations, including archbishops of the Spiritual Baptist Diocese, the Right Reverend Melford Pompey, the Right Reverend Johnny Jones, and all members of the Spiritual Baptist community, former parliamentarian and Speaker of the OECS Assembly, Ms. Rainey Batiste, lecturer, the Department of History and Philosophy, the UWI Cayfield Campus, Barbados, Dr. Cleve Scott, former resident tutor, the UWI Global Campus, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dr. Adrian Fraser, former senior lecturer in history, the UWI St. Augustine Campus, Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Claudius Fergus, members of the business community and civic organizations, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good night. Good night, everyone. I bring you warm greetings on behalf of the University of the West Indies Global Campus in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you to our lecture tonight as we celebrate the resilience, determination, and achievements of spiritual Baptists in St. Vincent and the Grenadines over the years. May 21st, 2025 will mark the first National Spiritual Baptist holiday in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, following the passage of the Public Holiday Amendment Bill in Parliament on the 27th of August, 2024. As we honor this significant day, we also acknowledge the collaborative efforts that have brought us here. The University of the West Indies Global Campus in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, in partnership with 3 distinguished Vincentian historians, Dr. Cleve Scott, Dr. Adrian Fraser, and Dr. Gary Michael Denny, has taken the initiative to present a series of public lectures that delve into various aspects of the spiritual Baptist faith. This collaboration exemplifies the commitment to education and the sharing of knowledge. Each historian brings a wealth of knowledge and a unique perspective that will undoubtedly enrich our understanding of this vital aspect of our heritage. Dr. Gary Michael Denny delivered the first lecture titled On the Mourning Ground, the Religious Imagination of the Spiritual Baptist on March 6th in Calder. Dr. Denny focused on mourning as a distinctive ritual practice of the spiritual Baptist. He also recounted his own childhood memories of observing the rituals of the spiritual Baptist faith. Then, Dr. Adrian Fraser delivered the second public lecture titled The Spiritual Baptist Struggle for Survival, highlighting George McIntosh's advocacy for the right to practice their religion. In Kingstown at the UWI Global Campus site, we learned about George McIntosh's advocacy for the revocation of the St. Vincent Shakerism Prohibition Ordinance that banned the Shakers' religion in 1912. The lecture delved into the struggles of the Shakers, also known as spiritual Baptists, to retain their religion from 1912, when the ban came into effect, until 1965, when it was finally repealed. Ladies and gentlemen, could you imagine how the Shakers, also known as spiritual Baptists, felt about being persecuted, prosecuted, and prevented from practicing their faith for 53 years? To coincide with that lecture, we showed parts of the film, the local film documentary, Ring the Bell, Shout Hallelujah, written by Christina K. Smith and shot by Eldon. According to a Searchlight newspaper online article dated March 21st, 2025, the film highlights pivotal periods in the history of the spiritual Baptist faith, including the persecution of the Shakers, the name spiritual Baptists were known by in the past, and their resistance to the St. Vincent Shakerism Prohibition Ordinance. Dr. Fraser, who is present tonight, is featured in the film and provided a rich historical account. Tonight, we are hosting our third public lecture right here at the Rose Hall Community Center. Dr. Cleve Scott will present on the topic, the spiritual Baptists and the musical traditions of the Caribbean. According to Dr. Scott, the lecture will focus on the musical traditions of the Caribbean to show how the spiritual Baptists have influenced music. Believe it or not, the drum was not originally part of spiritual Baptist worship, according to Dr. Scott. The lecture will demonstrate how the religion created the sounds of the drums with their voices. Later on, the drum was incorporated, and there were reports of the infectious rhythms of that drum rolling over the hill from the prayer houses. Examples of spiritual Baptist musical motifs will be drawn from the music of Cornelius Poser Williams and Delroy Fireman Hooper. These lectures are not just academic exercises. They are vital platforms for preserving and sharing our local history. On a personal note, the preparation for these lectures evoked childhood memories of spiritual Baptist worship, including praise and thanksgiving services which were held in our home in Fountain. My maternal grandmother, a practicing Anglican, taught our family to respect spiritual Baptists. I have gained so much knowledge from these lectures, as well as countless hours of conversation from various members of the spiritual Baptist community, and I want to say thank you very much. Tonight, we look forward to rhythmic songs from the Rose Hall drummers, as well as melodious singing from the Mount Moriah Spiritual Baptist Church from Chateaubelair. As I close, I would like to leave this message with members of the spiritual Baptist community. Let this first National Spiritual Baptist holiday be an occasion for reflection, thanksgiving, and unification, so that we do not take for granted the long road you have traveled and the long road ahead. Thank you all, and may God bless each and every one of you.
Okay, so we now continue the program. I see the guys standing in the back. I guess they're ready to beat some rhythms. You not ready? Okay, so we call on the Mount Moriah Spiritual Baptist Church Choir to come and bless us with some lovely singing. Line up in front of you? Yeah. Okay. them a big round of applause. Thank you very much. Give them a big round of applause. Give them a big round of applause. Come on, let's give them a big round of applause. That's the Baptist rhythm. Spiritual Baptist. Yes, it sounded well, didn't it? That's why we're here. Right down again. Right down again. That's why we're here. To celebrate with the spiritual Baptists. And the norm for the spiritual Baptist is to be acoustic. So probably that's why the technology is giving trouble. You got to go down to that. I'll try this one. Okay. Yes. So we are here to celebrate with the spiritual Baptist. That was some lovely singing, some lovely drumming. So you're going to perform. So the drummers are ready. They say they're going to give us one selection. The Rose Hall drummers, let's welcome them, ladies and gentlemen.
Sorry, I called that one name called before, but we have some guests from Martinique, so they are in Rose Halls from tomorrow, so I have to take care of them. I'm sorry. Lavinia brought these good people to us, so Lavinia, stand. So we have to take care of them. Jesus, are you? Jesus, are you? Yes, are you lead the way? Yes, are you lead the way? This was the cry of our forefathers. This was the cry of our ancestors. Freedom! A plenty killing about us in this. So we have to talk about gunman and that. Mr. Gunman! Where you want to go with gun in your hand? Where you want to go with gun in your hand? Mr. Gunman! Mr. Gunman! Tell me where you want to go with gun in your hand? You want to shoot? You want to shoot? You want to shoot? You want to shoot? Mr. Gunman! Mr. Gunman! Are you policeman? You are in the police? You are CIA? Mr. Gunman! Mr. Gunman! Tell me where you are going in your hand.
Those are drummers. So we're moving along smoothly. We're now getting to the main part of why we're here tonight. And to introduce the featured speaker, I'd now like to call on former senior lecturer in history, the UWI St. Augustine campus, Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Claudius Fergus, to introduce our featured speaker tonight.
Thank you, Chairman. I wanted to be here for all of the lectures, and I just managed to make it to this one this evening. So this is my third attendance, and this definitely is the most energetic of all the lectures. Thank you very much. And of course, you made it so. Now, I first came to the knowledge of this topic of the impact of the spiritual Baptist on Caribbean music through a colleague of mine at the history department in St. Augustine. Very much a twin of Dr. Scott here, because he's a multi-talented musician as well. Tried to persuade him over the years, please do some research into this thing. This is an understudied topic in Caribbean history, in Caribbean culture, and so many other disciplines. He never did, not formally, but he was very knowledgeable about the impact of the spiritual Baptist, and he said it, you know, in so many places. Caribbean music has nothing to offer outside of the context of spiritual Baptists. So Dr. Scott would perhaps endorse that statement this evening. Dr. Scott, of course, is eminently qualified. He is a musician. He plays a lot of different instruments. But Dr. Cleve Scott, MacDonald Scott, is a historian as well. He's a cultural critic, a music producer, and a development specialist who has worked for global organizations such as Oxfam and United Nations agencies. He's also a research associate of the Oral History Project at the Department of History and Philosophy at the Cave Hill campus of the University of the West Indies. His research focus is on the cultural and the political history Windward Islands. Of course, we are in the Windward Islands. In 2004, he was awarded the Julian Fedon Memorial Standard Work in History from the University of the West Indies School of Continuing Studies. Julian Fedon, for those of you who don't know, is one of our heroes of resistance to slavery and colonialism in Grenada. This is one of Grenada's great heroes and our Caribbean hero, Julian Fedon. The Institute also of the People's Enlightenment in Grenada would have recognized him, not surprisingly. In addition, Dr. Scott is one of the 4 authors of the Government Commission History of St. Vincent and Grenadines, a brand new series, which would be published in 3 volumes. So you need to look out for that. So I want you to please welcome Dr. Scott to present this evening's lecture, Spiritual Baptists and the Musical Traditions of the Caribbean. Dr. Scott.
I have the protocol list, so I have to follow protocol. Members of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, head organizations, head of site of the UWI Global Campus, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dr. Risa Noel McBarnett, and former tutor, co-writer on the history of SVG, Dr. Adrian Fraser, Dr. Gary Michael Denny, also a co-author, Dr. Claudius Forgas, who has been a colleague for many, many years. But I want to recognize especially Madam Rennie Batiste, former Minister of Culture, who I had the opportunity in Carnival, in history, and everything. And I don't think we would ever get another culture minister like her. I don't ever think so. She really, truly believes in culture. And I saw a few weeks ago, she was there with UNESCO, World Heritage Committee, still toiling. I don't know where she gets the energy from. I recognize her presence. I am also told by the Rose Hall drummers, Selwyn, Selly, that we have guests from Martinique. I don't speak French. Dr. Fraser speaks French, I think, because he studied in Canada. But he would say, welcome. Oh, you said that again in French, Dr. Fraser? All right. I also recognize our chair, Mr. Allen. And I thank Brother Monty Montgomery, who has walked with me since he's a little boy in Catholic school. He used to run me from school to come to park to pass my wires. So I'm happy that he has grown in stature in this business. I have here with me also a very close friend, a member of the band Touch, Willis Williams. For those of you who don't know, Willis grew up just up the hill at Belmont and the Observatory, and I see Rennie, Sister Miss B, that's shaking her head. She is a wealth of information. If you're careful, she'll tell you all the families that lived in the area. Right? Yes, and I am happy to be here in this capacity. I've been in this hall many times, making noise in your head. And good thing the police station is nearby. So the first thing I would normally do is go to the police station, buy a round of drinks. I didn't have to do that this evening because we are here on official duties. Good. This evening, I'm going to speak about the musical traditions that the spiritual Baptists have, and I use the verb have because there are multiple strains of the spiritual Baptists. Dr. Forgas, who is an expert, who wrote a book recently called, what's the title of the book again, Dr. Forgas? Beyond Toleration. Yeah, it's a long title, and as lecturers, we don't like long titles because students will remember them. So it's something about intoleration. Now, the spiritual Baptist is a quintessential aspect of Vincentian history and culture and heritage. What does that mean? It means he belong to our way. It is our we own. Y'all remember Oti? Oti Mears? Yeah, the barefoot man? Yeah, he used to say after court says. Y'all remember that? After court says, oh, I will store you after court says jail. Y'all remember that? Right. It is a quintessential Vincentian aspect. Just like how Oti Myers was quintessential Vincentian, the barefoot man. Since I knew him, I never see him in a shoe. I don't know if he was buried in a shoe. Right? And in the previous lectures, Dr. Denny explained the origins of this. Then Dr. Fraser went on to add to how the spiritual Baptist was criminalized and eventually ban was lifted. This series by the Global Campus is being held to coincide with the first declaration of an official holiday. Yes, Trinidad have a holiday before us, but some people say it's better late than. So let's have a round of applause for the government. In March of this year, according to one news report, a fella, and I won't call his name because I would make him infamous, entered a church along with his dog. He assaulted a woman and interrupted the worship service when he shouted to the woman, "You are the devil." When he was taken to court, an order to EC $1,700 in fine by May 12th. May 12th is when? Another 4 days. I don't know if he paid the money. Or go to prison. He told the court, "I was intoxicated." According to the news report, "I can't remember. I have no memory." And this man lived next to the church. This church, the news report said, is the St. Philip's Spiritual Baptist Church at New Chapman. Do you all know that church? No? Okay. So, according to the report, this man who went into the church and told the woman, "You're the devil," the spiritual Baptist woman, hit the woman in his head when he said, "You are the devil." Now, this is in 2025. Had he done this in 1846 or 1946, he might have been rewarded. It means that the Spiritual Baptist Church had moved from what historians would call the backwaters or the margins into the center. It is now recognized as an important part of our society. The Spiritual Baptists, as you know, are known by all kinds of names historically: Shakers, penitent, tie-head, converted, and so on and so on. But the Spiritual Baptists have touched on every element of Vincentian society, economy, and of course, religion. Every Vincentian, every Vinci, as the young people would say, is somewhat familiar with the iconography, that's the symbols, the motifs, and the rituals. Well, I look around here, I don't see any cordylines. I hope I'm pronouncing the word. Cordylines, the red ones and the green ones. Okay. But we all know of the different motifs. The church originated in the Wesleyan Church in the 1840s. And this is for the sake of those who didn't hear Dr. Denny's lecture. Since the latter part of slavery, a Wesleyan minister by the name of William Fiddler, who was based in Chateaubelair. He recorded in a diary, word for word, the enthusiasm with which black persons in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, enslaved blacks, the enthusiasm they showed for Christianity, and in particular, the love of Jesus. Fiddler's leadership saw the Wesleyan numbers expand all across St. Vincent and the Grenadines. In fact, by the time slavery ended in 1838, after what was called apprenticeship, almost every estate had a prayer house. Almost every estate had a prayer house. And around 1846, Fiddler was transferred from St. Vincent to Barbados, and a new superintendent minister came. This minister was appalled with the way blacks were behaving in the church, the way they were singing and dancing and so on. And he accused them of having an empire within an empire. Of course, he wrote those words in Latin, right? And Dr. Denny, who studied Latin in grammar school, I was told, he likes the Latin tongue. When I went into grammar school, Latin was on my report, but I didn't study Latin, so I don't try to pronounce Latin. This new minister eventually threw out all of the blacks, hundreds of them, across St. Vincent and the Grenadines, because he considered their way of worship to be improper, to not be proper decorum. All right? So he threw them out. And instantly, they set up their own infrastructure. Now, by the 1850s, the Spiritual Baptist Church had significant numbers and was causing problems to the Wesleyans. The Wesleyans' main complaint was they were not making lower numbers, people not showing collections, they're not paying up the subscriptions, and they begin to complain. Okay? Good. So that is the origin of the church. That's the origin. And currents that were taking place that helped to bring in to strengthen the African component. We had, during that period, in the 1840s, we had the coming of what we call liberated Africans. St. Vincent got about 1,200. Most of them came from Sierra Leone, which is on the west coast of Africa. And also we had soldiers who had been here since the period of the Garifuna Wars. In the old text, they call them the Carib Wars, but in the new text that we are writing, we have renamed them of the Garifuna Wars for sovereignty. Okay? I will come back to their role later on. The main feature of the Spiritual Baptists that we are told by most of the anthropologists who study the Spiritual Baptists in the region, both in Trinidad and in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, since the late 19th century right up until the 1960s, they speak about two things. Firstly, the Methodist hymnal, and secondly, the Methodist prayer book. And Hoskowitz, who spent a lot of time in Trinidad, he provided a lot of information on the nature of these songs and how they were singing these songs. According to most of these melodies are the Methodist melodies and the hymnals, and they were jazzed up. So we have Willis here, and you're going to sing again. So Willis, which one are we going with? You have to hear it, microphone.
Amazing Grace. And we'll do a very boring version for us to show the difference between where it moved from and where it is today. So let's go. And this will probably just be the chord structure without me bringing up the melody, because that is to coincide with the spiritual Baptists. They really just did the rhythm, and there was not a lot of instrumentation.
Yeah, you have to explain to the audience what the chord structure.
This Amazing Grace is a song that it really doesn't have a verse or a chorus, because it's a one bodied song. For the budding musicians, the melodic structure would be, for the old people, they used to call it the first, fourth, and fifth, but now they call it a 1-4-5-1. The new students of music 1-4-5-1 arrangement, and that repeats itself in hymn and incidentally in our calypso, in our spiritual Baptist music. There's a lot of repetitions, a lot of things repeat itself, mainly for emphasis. But this Amazing Grace is so structured, and it has a step version in that it doesn't really skip too far the progressions and the noting. Everything in this song can be played in one octave. It doesn't move all over the spectrum of the keyboard.
Which means that it's easy to sing.
That
anybody can sing it. Yeah.
But it lends itself to a lot of arrangements, a lot of different variations.
Right.
And arrangements.
So give us a jazz up version.
I'll play it for you in a slightly more complicated, but hopefully pleasant feeling.
Come on, let's sing, man. Yeah, thank you very much. Understand melody, and these are the kinds of hymns from the Methodist hymnal that the spiritual Baptists took. And with the spiritual Baptists, they tell you the two things that distinguish them, and I'm going to call that distinguish St. Vincent from Trinidad is the Methodist hymnal and prayer book and these melodies. Good. Now the drum. The drum. From the time I began studying history, and Zembo Brown keep harassing me and tell me I must write about the drum. And I have never written about the drum until for this lecture. Right? You all know Zembo? Right. He is one of the persons who, he's a calypsonian as well. Willis and myself, we worked with him on many songs. He's a calypsonian like Sule. Sule, you all know Sule? Yes. Right. That believe in the centrality of the drum to our culture. Now, you would often hear that the drum was banned during slavery. You all heard that, right? So you would think that you couldn't play the drum at all. That's because people always take historical facts, and distort them. The fact is that in the slave laws, there was a regulation controlling the drum. I'm going to go firstly to the first females and blowhorns, since these were means of communication which might be used to help runaways. All such activities were dangerous too, as means of concerting uprisings, another reason for the existence of these laws. Not all of them were enforced at all times with equal vigor, right? And Sister B, Ms. Batiste would tell you that's something she always concerned about as a parliamentarian, the ability to police laws. You come up with laws, how do you police these laws? And she goes on, Professor Gavaya goes on. Slave dances, feasts, and drumming were often allowed, right? It was often allowed. So that if you go to the slave laws, and I have taken the one from Jamaica because the one from St. Vincent, those are handwritten. I sent them to Dr. Fraser some time ago and I couldn't remember where I put them. So easy walk, I went to Jamaica's. It said here, permitting them to beat drums or blow horns or shells or use any instruments of dancing or to dance except in the mill yard and before 9 at night or to funerals after 7 at night, have music or singing at such funerals. The governor is empowered to forbid by proclamation all dances of slave and to employ the militia in searching for Negro houses for runaways or for mischievous weapons. The militia would be the volunteer, usually they would be the whites, the planter class, who have permission to carry guns and so on. Good. And we have evidence of people getting punished for beating drums after hours. In Jamaica, the guy named Peter Delzy, for dancing to the drum after the appointed hour, he got 25 stripes, meaning he got 25 lashes with the whip. All right? But the drum was permitted. One of the first places they saw carnival-like activities in the West Indies was right here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines in 17-something, right? William Young, you all know about Young Island, William Young, a British planter, around 1791, he recalled during Christmas seeing on the road what he calls a gay fair with lots to eat. And he said he encountered a group of boys with the Moko Jumbi. The Moko Jumbi is stilt walker. You all know the stilt walker. We don't see those very much again, but I understand for Carnival this year we bringing back out the traditional, and we must give the Carnival people a round of applause for that, to bring back some of the traditional stuff. Now, the Moko Jumbi, the fellas with the Moko Jumbi, they were beating the gumba or the gombe. Monty, slide number 1, the gombe. And this gombe that I'm showing you here is one, where's Monty? Not there? Slide number 1. This one I'm going to show you, where's Sally? Is from Jamaica. That's a Jamaica gombe. It's a square drum, like a bench. You all ever see a drum like that? Like a stool. Right? That's the gombe. But the one in St. Vincent was not like that. The one in St. Vincent, we are told, was made from cutting off the top of a rum barrel and putting the sheepskin in it. But they were playing the gombe. Right? And according to John Anderson, who was a stipendiary magistrate working here, and Dr. Fraser always like to remind us that John Anderson was a mean man, and he met his death somewhere at Connery. One night he went to execute judgments, and he fell off his horse and he died in a trench because no one was there to help him. But John Anderson, he left a diary. He left a diary on his period during apprenticeship, which is in the 1830s. And he said that the gombe, or the gomba, was a discordant drum formed of sheepskin stretched over a barrel. Right? So it's called the gombe or the gomba. And that drum was in St. Vincent that Anderson wrote about and that William Young spoke about since the late 18th century. In other words, before we have the formation of the spiritual Baptists, you had drumming and drums as part of the culture. And I'm going to go on to emphasize this. You have the gombe, not only in St. Vincent, you have it all across the region. You have it in the Bahamas. And I say the Bahamas because Dr. Fergus likes to remind us that in the 1820s, a fellow named Alexander Thomas Brown, who, well, according to Dr. Fraser, stole, and Dr. Denny likes to laugh because he was in prison for appropriating or misappropriating the Grand Sable estate. But thanks to Alexander Brown, Thomas Alexander Brown, we know a lot about the enslaved people and Grand Sable, and I'm going to come back to that. Right? So the gombe was all across. The mokojombi was all across. But in St. Vincent is the only place they have detailed account of the performance of what was called the Willie or the Jombi dance. A man by the name of Charles William Day, he wrote a book called 5 Years Residence in the West Indies. And this guy was a racist. Dr. Fergus, you read that? 5 Years Residence? Yeah? Every time Dr. Denny reads it, he gets very angry. He's a racist. But importantly, he lets us know a lot about African culture in St. Vincent. And I'm mentioning this because the spiritual Baptists became synonymous with obeah and magic. Because at the time, anything that is not European, something had to be wrong with it. Obeah and magic. And why are they worried? Because in St. Vincent, the law prohibiting obeah also mentioned white people. White people were prohibited from practicing obeah in St. Vincent. Good. They speaks about the mokojombi and the willy dance, right? This performance, we are told by anthropologists and ethnomusicologists and so on, represents that in St. Vincent, it was not only part of performance, it was part of magic. And this magic had the participation of the black soldiers in the West India Regiment who were based here, right? Essentially what they did, they took a pole and tried to convince people that the pole could move by itself without anybody doing it. And the performance gives you that idea. According to this, the man who was in charge of the magic was an obeah man who traveled from island to island with his entourage of women. And these soldiers, we are told, were, how you pronounce it now, Ibu? 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 Okay. I have to ask Dr. Ferguson, he's a specialist on Africa. Good. Now, the point is, you have all of these presence of the African, Neo-African inputs. Those persons on Grand Saba, 600 of them, those persons who are liberated Africans who came. We also have what they call the intercolonial slave trade, because after 1807, you couldn't bring enslaved people anymore from Africa. You have to bring them from other countries. You have to get permission. And we have all of the documents. We know where they came from, the name, the ages, and so on. Many came from St. Lucia, Grenada, and they came here, and then they went from here, moved from here to Trinidad, and from here to Guyana, and so on. Right? You had the drum, and I'm going to come back to the drum. Another instrument that we had, popular here, Monty, let's go down to the table. Go down to the table. I can't remember which slide it is. Go down. We had, yeah, that table. I don't know if you all could see it. We had the fiddle. The fiddle. And in all of the documents that exist to date, they are the second largest reference to the fiddle in St. Vincent. The fiddle was used by blacks. And we are told that string playing instruments is a West African tradition, especially in the savannah. The savannah, where it was popular, and it was played in the region because it was similar to European string instruments, and so it gave that instruments had decorum. In other words, if you're playing a fiddle, right, like how Willis is playing a piano, if you're playing a piano, and Ms. Batiste will tell you, as a young girl, you're sent to play the piano too? So we should ask to play a tune later. That you'll be sent to play the piano. But in Trinidad, if you go and play steel pan, or if you go and sing calypso, you are a drunkard, and so on. The fiddle was all over in St. Vincent. Good. So let's go back to the Wesleyan Church. The Wesleyans did not like, initially, who they call the wilderness people, who we now could today call the spiritual Baptists. They did not like this style of worship. The Anglican and the Catholic Church, their rituals reinforced class differences. They had segregated pews. The pews in the front were for the big ups. When students come to my class at Cable, they cannot sit in the back. You cannot sit in the back. And my reputation precedes me. So when they come to my class, they come to the front, because for centuries, black people have been told you can't sit in the front. Right? The front is for the whites, to the big ups, and so on. And me, not me, all my life I go and sit to the front seat. The other time I move. And if you don't give me a good reason, I am not moving unless you ask me pleasantly. So the wilderness people, on the other hand, they provided their members with an opportunity to incorporate African cultural traditions. However, they still understood within the context of colonial society, you have to incorporate decorum. And the most form of cultures during this period was 1, the drum, and 2, how you dance. How you dance. So in St. Vincent, we are told that there are 2 dances you were encouraged to do that were decent. One called the minuet, and another one, you all know, the quadrille. But there was one that nowadays we call it bashment. In Barbados, we used to call it bashment or bashi. There was one called the coffee dance. The coffee dance it was called. And that one was an annoyance. Good. So, the drums, tambourine, were instruments used by blacks. The fiddle, and so on. But in the Spiritual Baptist Church, there was no drums, no instruments. There were no instruments. All they were melodies, and they were melodies and rhythms. And I'll quote here. The hymns of the penitents, and this is a man by the name of C.W. Branch. C.W. Branch, he's writing in 1907. He was a young doctor from Scotland who was working at the hospital in Kingston, and he was fascinated by the Baptists, and he wrote about them. Not that he liked them, he found it interesting. And this is what he wrote in 1907. He says, the hymns of the penitents are devoid of meaning and consist mostly of conventional religious ejaculations and cant phrases. Let me repeat that. The hymns of the penitents are devoid of meaning and consist mostly of conventional religious ejaculations and cant phrases. They are of psychological interest, however, as they illustrate the lack of mentality better than any description. They are soon corrupted, and so as to contain even less meaning when sung. And he gives some examples, and I would like to know if you know these. He gives one. Oh, come, we go, happy land. Happy land, happy land. Come, we go, happy land. You all know that one? Huh? Let me hear it. Where the drummer? Willis? Where the drummer? Oh, come on, we go happy land. Yeah, I like to hear it because I never heard it. Just give a rhythm. Monty, there's a slide with it. Oh, come to happy land on the slide. Now, I didn't give you all of the lyrics he was, and yes, you definitely know it, because happy land of cane hen, where there's milk and honey. Willis, melody. Right, there's another hymn you have? Yeah.
How great thou art.
Yeah.
And how great thou art is a hymn a little more complicated than Amazing Grace. It is structured with a lot more music in it. It doesn't do too much of the gradual ascending. There's some large steps, which are leaps in the music, but that creates great dynamics and excitement. The song starts very nicely normally and builds up to a height by the end, by the chorus. And this is it. This song is a little more gracious, but it has two distinct parts, a chorus and a verse, and it's maybe a step up in the technical development of music at that time.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, the third distinctive element that separates the spiritual Baptist in St. Vincent from Trinidad is Shango influence. In Trinidad, there is a strong Shango influence. In St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we didn't have Shango in large numbers. I will tell you why in large numbers. Shango, and I'm looking at my notes, and if I make a mistake, Dr. Fergus will correct me. They believe in sacrificing animals and offering food. They also believe in the drum. The drum forms a central part of their celebration. Last year, June, around this time, no, we're not in June, I think in Carnival, sorry. Last year, June, I had the opportunity to go to Venezuela, and I thank Ambassador, I hope you're watching and viewing us. I thank you for the opportunity. Along with the Rosal drummers, I went with them. Where's Sally? Sally saw me outside. And we had to go to visit places where they were using the drum as part of their culture, their religious practices. And one time went into a building and the people in there beating, do, 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 do. And the Rastaman watched me say, I can't take this. Right? Because in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the drum was never part. In Trinidad, the drum was part of Shango. Now, why tell you never? Shango not being in St. Vincent. Monty, go down to the Vincentian newspaper. Where's Monty? And go down. Go down, Monty. Go down. That's him. Alright, stop there. Okay, Monty. You gonna make that bigger? That's a report from the Vincentian newspaper. And it says, let us see the headline. Come down. Go down a bit, let us see the headline. Wasteful sacrifice. That's what it says? Edinburgh. You see the year? That is when Ivy Joshua found herself in hot water. Mammy Joshua found herself in hot water. And the document above, go to the document above. And I'm showing you these things because people think historians just make up things. I was on VFM a time and a fella called and he says a fraud. Right? You make it bigger so they could read it for themselves. This is in the police report that went to England. And read what this says. Make it bigger so that you could see. Go up. They want to read, but no, down. They don't want to read about UWI. That's about UWI. Go down. Go up. Yeah. Y'all can see it? Right. We need a reader for the persons on television. Could we have a volunteer quickly? So you could read English? Come someone, then read it for them so that people at home and read. By the microphone so that they can think.
Residents of Kingston in the Edinburgh area, where the Chief Minister lives, were treated to the spectacle of a bearded priest publicly carrying out a superstitious ritual alleged to be instituted at the request of the Honorable Ivy Joshua. The Chief Minister was away on a visit to St. Thomas at the time.
That's E.T. Joshua, the husband.
And it is doubtful to what extent he would have approved these activities in Kingston, which are usually reserved for Georgetown. It is alleged that a sacrificial lamb, chickens, and other articles of food were cooked, offered up, and then thrown into the sea to the accompaniment of prayers, ringing of bells, and other weird songs. Amongst the believers, there are alleged to be dark mutterings as to the ills likely to befall the delegation to London. The Secretary of State and the Administrator know that the priest has made the sacrifice in obedience to divine command. The ritual source, the survival of the Joshua government and the downfall of his enemies. The Vincentian photographer was lucky to get some shots of the priest in action, and these were prominently displayed in this paper's issue of 25th March.
Thank you very much. Right. And I would say that is evidence of Shango. You would say so, Dr. Fergus? Evidence of Shango. Now, the Baptists, spiritual Baptists, had no musical instruments, no drum, no keyboard, no guitar. All they had was their voices. Their voices. And that is what made and still make the spiritual Baptists distinctive. But now there are many persons who think when they are spiritual Baptists that it had to do with the drums. So, what is the drum? What is the drum? Right? It says here, I'm going to read for you. I'm looking for my quotation. I lost it. It says here, at a meeting at a meeting in, I think it was in Barley, that, I find it, here it is. In February 1913, 6 persons were prosecuted for participating in a meeting at Kittell's village. It appears, and I'm quoting here a colleague of mine, Edward Cox, who passed recently. This is what he wrote. It appears that when the police entered the house shortly after 10 p.m., they found about 20 persons inside dancing in a ring. And this is what the police said, emitting occasionally curious grunting noises like a flock of goats, then singing not in words, but to a well-known hymn tune, making inarticulate sounds. Those composing the ring as they danced sprang into the air, clapping their hands at the same time. All right? And you have all of these reports about people not singing, not words, making grunt noises. And those grunt noises, they're referring to are the drum. So, if you go to the church with the drum in their hand, they'll be laughing at you. They say, oh, you're going walk obia, devil, you're going with that. But remember, initially you are Wesleyan, you believe in the Wesleyan basis. And we demonstrate to them that the songs, the hymns you're singing, the prayer book, everything. But the only difference is how you celebrate. And these are things that Fiddler noted from the very beginning. All right? And therefore, we don't have to demonstrate, but everybody in here knows how, unless you want to sing a song, in fact, sing a song, but don't sing a song, sing a song. It's up to you. Sing any song you want. Sing any song you want, any song. Right. Now, if you notice, what we call in music the accent is always on the offbeat. Well, you have an example. Which one are you going to use? Poser or are you going to use fireman? And the accent in the offbeat is distinctly African.
this is typical Vincentian, is a Vincentian beat actually, and I believe I'm back to something after me. I believe it is rooted heavily in the spiritual Baptist beat, and this song is really rooted in folk. We instantly a lot of folk music, which is influenced by the spiritual Baptist. This is a song that has high energy rhythm, not a lot of melody, but it doesn't, no song leaves it back behind. This song is high energy and interesting. The lyrical content is good and it is very cultural, but local. It's not necessarily international flavor.
The accent is, well, you give me the pop and up. Right, so that's for the single note now. Play single note samely. Pop and up, don't play the pop and, let's play peep. Right, that's what we call the half beat, and that's the same as if you're clapping. Right, that's if you're clapping and you do this, that's the offbeat. That's authentic African, and that motif forms the essence of most African music, including Vincentian music. Now I'm going to show you some songs that have direct influence in spiritual Baptists. Well, let's go with Sculpture, We Only Dancing. What do you have it? Sculpture, We Only Dancing. And you're going to pay attention to the chorus. It's something that Sculpture always says, and in fact when I meet him, I greet him. Sculpture's from Sion Hill. Sculpture. Found it, Monty? No? No looking for it? Still looking for it. Alright, Willis. You could go to Poser. Yeah? Yeah, go to Poser while Monty look for Sculpture. Monty, you have the list? Look for the list, please. I'm going to go through these songs to demonstrate. Oh. This one is called Jumbi Lego, and Willis and we worked on this in 1989. We worked on this song, 1989. And it is indeed a very good song. That's what we call the offbeat.
This song brings out something unique about the beats that come out from North Leeward. The similarity between this beat is a similarity that you may find in the Anaconda and the Rosy Screw type of thing, so it is synonymous with North Leeward. It's a folk, a North Leeward type of folk. It probably has something to do with With how they roast all drummers.
Yeah, and the melody, you could change the lyrics for the song, and it is essentially a hymn. In fact, all across the region now, they're taking popular songs and changing the lyrics and making hymns and so on.
Well, the musical structure and melodic structure for this song, this poser song, is very sound. It's very smooth, it's very easy to sing.
Yeah, demonstrate.
Really sweet. You know, all the notes contained within the movement of one span, and they fit really well. The song is what you call it lines up well with the rhythm, the lyrics, and it's well structured.
All right. Okay, Scorcher, we only dancing. You're going to pay attention to the chorus. Let me see if you pick up the motif.
The other night I went to a party. I had to drink a rum and a whiskey. I felt so nice, I grabbed a young lady. In a low voice, she whispered to me, move your hand from there, like you from house to play. Please, Mr. Change your plan. Are you looking for man? We only dancing.
This is the section we are going to hear the influence. Right, so where he says brudu, right? The Baptists, spiritual Baptists are the ones who invented in the region drumming with the mouth. So once you hear that, and if you go to Gypsy, sing Ram Bam Bam, if you listen to Dan Simon, Mizuma Mizuma, if you listen to Fireman, Baptist Meeting, all of these songs, you're going to find out. All these songs you hear here is an imitation. Right, thanks Monty. As an example, yeah. Gypsy now. Gypsy sing Ram Bam. Right, thank you, Monty. So there you have examples, and there's so many examples. Now, I would leave you with this, that you have cross-fertilization. We are in the 21st century. People go all over the world, people see things, bring back things, and people bring it in. But what I was speaking about tonight is the spiritual Baptist traditions up until around independence time. Today, you all have kinds of different things. Now, there's one thing I'm going to leave you with. Monty, if you go back to that picture, the Baptist preacher at Rattermill on the PowerPoint. And this picture is around the 1960s. PowerPoint. And it's a man, right? Make it, no, go back, that's it. Make it bigger, right? That's the 1960s. Now, do we see men still dress today? You have all kinds of different dress. We're in a different time. I'm not saying we should be dressing the same. I'm just trying to explain to you that times change and people change and influence changes. And now the drum has become, and instruments are becoming more and more part of the spiritual Baptist religion all across the world. Thank you very much for your attention. I could answer questions hereafter. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we now at the question and answer segment. There's a microphone to the front here. Remember, we're going live, so for the benefit of those who are viewing us, we'd like you to use the microphone if you want to ask your questions, so that everybody would hear. So we're now into the question and answer segment. If you have your questions, feel free. The microphone is here.
Good night, everyone. Is anyone aware that the first spiritual Baptist organization that was established, the legal institution was established in Rosal by one Jebet Stapleton?
Chair. You're the chair.
Waiting. The floor is open.
No,
the floor is still open for questions.
You can't move, you have to stay.
Good night. My name is Edgar Kwabilos. I just want to make a comment concerning Miss Joshua. The reason why Miss Joshua could have practiced the shampoo thing, because she was from Grenada, and Grenada had the shampoo in Grenada. When I was down there in Bishop time, we did some research, but it kind of deplete. One thing, the African who come here, find the Spanish in Cuba had the Santa Rosa, in Trinidad they had this thing called the Shango, and certain African, certain part of Africa, while they had the common religious thing, they had something different, because the Shango not too far from Baptist. The only difference, the Shango deal with, as you say, blood thing and the beat drum. Cuba has something called the Santa Rosa. So, what happened? Moko Jump and all them things that we have here, St. Thomas and St. Christ practice this thing in the Mass. With the people here, the African who come here, actually come with something very high. So they kind of feud, dependent where the African come from. And similar, but they had a different practice. That is why Miss Joshua couldn't do the Shango thing, because he was from Grenada, he had that in Grenada.
Thank you very much.
Response? Let me just go to my brother because he touched on those, so I have to ask him a question. So in my history, I was told that the Jackhill was a village. So the people in Jackhill had a church in Jackhill before they moved to Rosa. So then if Pointer Stapleton was the first one to have a registered vote in what year did that happen? Because we know that Renan had the church in Jack Hill, Baptist Church, and before you moved to over so what in what year did you register?
In the year 1978. It says an act to provide for the incorporation of the trustees of the body to be known as the Spiritual Baptist Organization in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Be it enacted by the Queen's Most Majesty, by and with the advice and consent of the House of Assembly of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and by the authority of the same as follows. This act may be cited as the Spiritual Baptist Organization of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and it tells you where the Spiritual Baptist is. I'm trying to. Okay, let me get down close here. I want to shout it up. Yeah. Okay, let me read it up to hold right there. Sorry. Spiritual Baptist Organization of St. Vincent and the Grenadines report to as church means the association of all the congregations and religious assemblies of Christians in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, its dependencies, which said church has accepted the constitution of the denomination and have been received into fellowship by the Annual General Assembly of the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Association, and the location is in Rose Hall, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, dated 1978. I want to bring you where Mr. Slaperton, it's a lot of reading, so, okay. Okay, I got it here.
Could you summarize it?
The Reverend Jeffrey Slaperton, General Secretary, and it carries on and it tells you other members. So as to the question, which year, it would have been the year 1978, Act number 16 of 1978, and the governor there would have been R.E. Baines. He dated this on July 1978. I hope this answers the question. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Any other questions?
Chair, let me ask my question. Thank you very much, Dr. Scott, for a very informative lecture. I would have liked you to go beyond 1979 when the soca music would have really brought out the essence of the spiritual Baptist music, culminating in super blues, soca Baptist, calypso actually, but I know you were limited by your own date that you have set. Now, I was hoping to hear how the adoption, I'm not sure you addressed that directly, but you did speak to it, the noises and so on, all of that, you know, the adoption and how that would have impacted perhaps a lot of those traditions that we know today, spoken word poetics, for example, rapso and so on, you know. Now, if those go beyond your time, then forgive me for asking. But I want to ask you about the hymn that you mentioned, Happy Land of Canaan, and the second one, that is a sort of foundational hymn from the way you put it over. And going to Africa land, my question is in relation to the demonization of Egypt by the Jews in the Torah, which is, of course, part of the Old Testament. Do you think that this emphasis on Canaan, and Canaan was, of course, an enemy of Israel, still is. The Gaza is in Canaan, and you know what is happening there today. So, is the elevation of Canaan by the spiritual Baptists and going back to Africa generally a sort of counterpoise to the demonization of Egypt and also to underscore their sovereignty and independence as a separate denomination within Christianity, African Christianity? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fergus, for your question. In relation to the question on adoption, you only have so much time. My work is extensive, so I can't do everything here. But suffice it to say that orality, we are told, is an African tradition. St. Vincent and the Grenadines has been identified as one of the most important places where orality blossomed up until recently. We're talking about the tea meeting. There's a researcher by the name of Abrams. He wrote a book called Man of Words. And he was followed by several other anthropologists. They studied tea meetings. You all remember tea meetings? They spoke about speechifying at Christmas, speechifying Juve morning. And so the spiritual Baptists, speechifying was an important element of their service. In fact, there are two elements. And these two elements are opposites. The first one is silence, which is why the earliest critics describe them as being influenced by the Quakers. In fact, when we, as the historians working on the government volumes, when we saw that reference, Dr. Denny was shocked. He said, well, Quakers, they're very quiet. And that's because the accounts say that when they gather, I don't know if you all still do this, you could tell me if you still do this, the first thing people do is that they reflect quietly. You sit and you think and you pray quietly, and then somebody would start up testifying, or somebody might start a song. You all still do that? Right? Then that would lead you in eventually to what Dr. Fergus called adoption, which is the catching the spirit and traveling and seeing visions and so on. Now, most of the accounts I've seen, both what we call primary sources and secondary sources, what people wrote about the spiritual Baptists in these earlier times, they speak about going home to Africa. The after here is Africa. But I have seen references to the after here as being Israel. In fact, there's one that I wanted to play today that we don't have enough time. There's a song which was recorded in Grenada in the 1960s. And the song says, I want to go to Israel. It's a hymn, right? Now, you also know that in Kala, well, let me say Kala, is a river where the first Baptists practiced baptism. And they named this river the River Jordan. So you have these places, but the symbol the symbol is the hereafter, which is why in the service you would have the, how you pronounce it, cordyline, that's how you pronounce it? The red plant, you still use the red plant? The boundary mark, I see them all over. Well, the stem is a graveyard flower. The red cordyline. Historically, blacks use it to mark the boundaries while the plantations and the estate use it. And it's an important element in the traditional Baptist that one see and so on. So therefore, my direct answer to Dr. Fergus is these names are synonyms for the hereafter, whether it is Canaan, whether it's Africa land, whether it's cross River Jordan, whether it's Israel, they are all synonyms for after, hereafter, wherever you think you're going to be, which some people call heaven.
Is that good enough? All right, so we have another presentation here.
Okay, my name is Melford Pompey, and I am the Archbishop of the Spiritual Baptist Archdiocese of St. Vincent and Grenadines, and I am happy to be here tonight. I am sure Dr. Daly and Dr. Scott will remember this voice. I interviewed them on Gareth from the radio some weeks ago, just before the session. Let me just make some clarification here on the Spiritual Baptists. In 1951, when we were successful in that case, that we call it the landmark case, they wanted a name to be recognized. Remember, we were called Shakers, Wilderness people. And the Spiritual Baptist, that name was given from what I was told. But because they feel Spiritual Baptist was still close to like Shaker, converted, they said no. And it was one Leon Samuel. He later was elevated as a bishop in the Spiritual Baptist Church. He came up with the name Christian Pilgrim, and they readily accept that name, I was told, of Christian Pilgrim. So really in 1951, they really wanted to be called Spiritual Baptists. Now in 1978, when Bishop Stapleton would have registered the Spiritual Baptists, Bishop Stapleton was also a member of that Christian Pilgrim faith. So it was really just a breakaway from the Christian Pilgrim. And then at that time, remember in 1951, the law was still in the law books. But in 1978, it was no longer, because it was removed in 1965. And later we have also coming, changing from the Christian Pilgrim, the Spiritual Baptist Archdiocese today, which I am proud to be its leader. And so we have all of the branches today being called the Spiritual Baptist, except there's still one branch called the Christian Pilgrim. But I remember while we were doing music, one of the things that just went through my head is the way the Spiritual Baptists or the Shakers in that time sang. They sang peace. We'll call them in their time. It's the dialect. And if one of those songs were rendered earlier, children, children, no land day, children, no land day. Now, if we were to put that song together, we will say, children, children, there is no land. Children, children, there is no. Because we of today, we go into the standard English. But in those days, and I really think, although that they were with their dialect, because it is our culture, it's what we practice. And there's another one which says, children, where you come from the land of Zion. Children, where you come from, and I'm going to be. I think even when we sing them today, some people may ask, That's how we talk, or that's how we sing. But the rhythm and the way they sang in those days, it really used to help the spiritual baptism. I know we sing the songs we are so accustomed to now by other artists, and it still gives us that. But it is good, Dr. Scott, that we are able, no matter what the music is, no matter what it is, the spiritual baptist can turn that into a melody that can have you wondering where it comes from.
Yes, indeed. Noticeable element was the use of what Campbell Bradford would call nation language, what in St. Vincent people call broken English, or what some people call dialect or vernacular. And Dr. Denny, he's always fascinated when you read the primary sources that they wrote these down. These English observers, they wrote it down word for word exactly in the dialect. And that's the songs that I only took up one canon, but there are many others that they wrote down word for word in the nation language. Now, I have been an advocate for nation language to be our first language. Some people don't agree with me because most people in the Caribbean do not speak English. English is the second language, right? And it is the use of nation language that has been one of the reasons why the spiritual Baptists were laughed upon and frowned upon. Because the typical spiritual Baptist is not and was not a middle class, it's a working class, grassroots person. And therefore, standard English would never be the first language. And if you go to worship, and Finland in 1820 something, and in 1840 something, and in 1910, 13, and in 1950 something, they wrote it down. They always sang in nation language. Okay? So indeed you're correct. I'm not saying if you decide to sing in standard English, language is a decision. I work with an international organization, and when we haven't done everybody speak English, and the minute you go in a meeting, people who speak in Spanish start to speak Spanish. And you understand?
Thank you.
The period between 1949 and 1951 in particular, there were quite a lot of names, confusion over names. And the reason was the legislation was against the Shakers. So if we provide a different name, then we could avoid that legislation because it was against the Shakers. In 1949, if I'm not mistaken, when there was this big procession in Georgetown, they were called spiritual Baptists. But people claimed that they were not spiritual, they were Shakers using a different name. So in 1950, when George McIntosh attempted to have a spiritual Baptist procession in Kingston, they refused it. They said a Shaker by any other name is still a Shaker. So you had that name spiritual Baptist emerging around that time. But to avoid the legislation, it created a lot of confusion and recording. A lot of names came up just to avoid it. The particular piece of legislation was came in 1912. So I just wanted to mention that in terms of the spiritual Baptist names.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, this is a short question. We have been hearing about the impact of the spiritual Baptists on music of various genres. In Trinidad, we had a situation in the 1920s into the 30s where calypsonians were composing for the spiritual Baptists. So you have this exchange where the spiritual Baptist adoption in particular was impacting the music, but the calypsonians were actually composing what became hymns for the spiritual Baptists. Could you comment on that interchange and exchange, please?
I can't speak to Calypsonian composing hymns in St. Vincent. For a long time, Calypsonians make fun of the Baptists up until recently. Right? There's a calypso called Who Dropped the Sheep? And Bishop Pompey didn't sue the man. Right? No, you don't have that. What you do have is the cross influence, because there were lots of Calypsonians, like other Vincentians. The typical Vincentian was never too far away from a Baptist church. Never too far away. I live in New Montrose, and all over Montrose, you have Baptist church. Good night, Brother Eddie. Brother Eddie, Mr. Pompey, Bishop Pompey. Remember Brother Eddie? Edwards. Yes. Yes. Yeah, I know you listen, right? But I don't know of that, and sometimes I could delve in further. The important thing is, this holiday is going to do more than 1951. 1951 allowed the lifting of the ban, because even before the lifting of the ban, Dr. Fraser would tell you, you had Baptists doing the thing all over. But this holiday, what it's going to do is inscribe into the consciousness of Vincentians the significance and the importance of the Baptists. And just like how National Heroes Day have inscribed into the consciousness of people the importance of the Garifuna, because the Garifuna and the spiritual Baptists, it belonged to Awi. As Oti used to say, Awi O. And thank you very much for coming.
One more?
Vote of thanks.
Okay. Thank you all very much. Okay, we'll take one more. One more coming. Okay.
Welcome, Johnny.
Good night, everyone. I'm Johnny Jones, the Archbishop of Mount Carmel Archdiocese. Spiritual baptism is a unique faith. I've traveled to Trinidad that gets my head upset all the time, because they said Trinidad is the Mecca of Baptists. We know different. The name is not Chango, it's Orisha. Trinidad is the Mecca of Orisha. Our people suffered here in St. Vincent, and they migrate to Trinidad. Trinidad captivates and this Vincentian Baptist. There is where they originate from. They take what we have. It's unique that we as Vincentian people hold what we have, because it's unique. I'm going to tell you something that I hear is what I know. Up to today, Trinidad Baptists cannot sign Bibles with Catholic. They try to, and they can't make it like Vincentian. We have something special here in St. Vincent. It kind of shaped my spirit to know that we suffered here in St. Vincent. And tonight I want to say thank God for Prime Minister Alfonso, who heard the cry and heard the plea, and give us a holiday. Trinidad got holiday, and they still captivate on St. Vincent. They still can't make it like Vincent. And a while ago he said, I'm not fighting the holiday. What I'm trying to achieve is that we all understand what we have and cherish it. Come together in love. As we are getting here together, I believe this holiday must make an impact for the spiritual Baptist community, because we are going places. I'm a little old, but I'm young in status. And when I came into the spiritual Baptist faith, just a little baby. None of these things was around. Today, when you look at the women dressed in the spiritual Baptist clothes, I am amazed. You go to church, sometimes see ladies in high heel and stocking, we on gongs and play. So therefore we are moving places. Let us move up in our Christ. We got this holiday at a good time where we are to cherish it and understand what we have and what we have achieved. To us spiritual Baptist people, let us stay together. Yes. I am happy today that Archbishop Comby is here with us today. And it looks like there is no separation. I am from a different diocese, he is from a different diocese, but we are all Shouter Baptist people. Hear what's unique about the faith of coming down now, coming down to the church and move. Nobody has to pull it up to the Baptist. Nobody else. There is something that Vincent and Baptist has. And nobody else don't have. I remember pointing borders in Trinidad. And when I talk about number one, Revolutionary Actions, what is that? What is that? Everybody else is willing to know what is number one. And not only number one, Baptist and St. Vincent can go out for hours without the drum. In Trinidad, when the drum stops, everybody stops shouting. Here in St. Vincent for hours, Baptist rolling. Something that they go see now. I remember coming up a little boy, I used to sleep on the granny leg. People used to die away. And the point you have to pay them and bring them back. Trinidad don't work that. But we know what we hear is well, is well, is well.
I will leave you with this one. The first bishop of the Spiritual Baptist in Trinidad. You remember his name? Claudius, the first bishop. Yes. Griffith. You know who ordained him a bishop? No? A man by the name of Rodford Macmillan Jack, who lived at Richmond Hill, who ran. That's a fanfare? Yes. And Jack was a member of the UNIA, and he went to Cuba and so on. Jack ordained him. And there must be a reason why Jack sent for a man from St. Vincent to ordain the first bishop in Trinidad. I didn't know a friend of mine who wrote a book by the name of Curtis Jacobs. Curtis Jacobs, it's called Joy Comes in the Morning. It's on the history of the Baptists in Trinidad. And he told me, and he showed me in his book, that Jack, who I have written about, ordained that bishop, the first bishop in Spiritual Baptist. Vinci, we are large, and we must be proud of ourselves. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you very much. I'm certain that everyone here is happy that they came here. We've had a lot of information We've had some lovely entertainment, and it's all on the behalf of the Baptist, the spiritual Baptist religion in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We have a lot to be proud of. Baptists, give yourselves a big round of applause. This year we will have our first holiday in recognition of the spiritual Baptists. That is something to be very proud of as a grouping. We must be very proud of that. So when you leave here with a wealth of information and big up your status, as you say. Baptists, we are on the way up. Good? Now with all good things, we must come to an end. Our presenters have to travel long distances, our technicians and so on. So they have to go. So we now have the vote of thanks, which will be delivered by Dr. McBarnett.
Good night again, everyone. I will tell you this. I do not normally do both opening or welcome and vote of thanks, but I have to go as instructed by the Holy Spirit. 1 Thessalonians 5:18, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you. Good night again, everyone. As we conclude this insightful and enriching lecture, it is my honor to deliver the vote of thanks on behalf of the University of the West Indies, Global Campus, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We are immensely grateful to Mother Deaconess Edwina Samuel for the blessing of the opening prayer and Mount Moriah Spiritual Baptist Church for the spirit-filled singing. I felt as though we could have sung all night. Heartfelt thank you to all spiritual Baptist churches throughout St. Vincent and the Grenadines for your support, and special commendation to the spiritual Baptists who journeyed here to Rose Hall. For those within North Leeward and those who came from outside of North Leeward as far as Overland, Archbishop Pompey, yes, persons would have come in from various areas, Calder, Retreat, Vermont. If I'm missing any of the other communities, please do not be offended, but we are so grateful that you made it here with us. The Rose Hall drummers, thank you for your pulsating drum performance. We are grateful to Mr. Selwyn Patterson, affectionately known as Selly. He's the president of the Rose Hall Cultural and Development Organization. And in terms of preparation for this lecture, he was, as they say, my right hand. Selly, I cannot thank you enough. Honestly, please give him a round of applause. Thank you to Dr. Claudius Fergus for introducing Dr. Scott, and of course for your overwhelming support, unwavering support of our lecture series. I really do appreciate it. Dr. Scott, Cleve Scott, thank you for your presentation and your continued contributions to the documentation and presentation of local Vincentian history. Mrs. Emma Jackson, Emma, thank you very much, of EMS Creations. We appreciate your creativity, thoughtfulness in the decor. We didn't want to just have a lecture, we thought that decor was very and is very important. Gratitude to our technical team. Hats off to all of you. Mr. Jeffrey Cap Balcom, Tihani Cato, Monty Cupid, Willis Williams, colleagues from UWI TV for your support. Thank you to all the media houses as well for your support. To the staff, oh, and Cookie, my apologies. Our dearest Cookie. Give Cookie a special round of applause. Thank you for sticking with us. To the staff of the UWI Global Campus, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, your hard work behind the scenes has ensured the smooth execution of this lecture. And I want to give commendation to Ms. Sharon Garway, marketing assistant. Those of you who traveled down in one of the coaster buses, she was with you. Mr. Tihani Cato, who I mentioned earlier, he's our site technician, and he is at the back, and he is one of the newest members of our staff, and he has been really pulling his weight. Thank you so very, very much. And special commendation to all of you, our audience. Your active engagement and contributions have enriched the discussions and made this event a collaborative success. If I tell you this, I have to be very honest. Everything that could have gone wrong this week went wrong. But we give God the glory, we give him the thanks, and we give him the praise for everything that has come together very well. And I wish everyone a safe journey back to your respective homes. Thank you and God bless you. And just to mention, yes, we do have, yes, Dr. Scott, we do have refreshments that we will distribute in an orderly manner, and of course something to drink as well. We would not let you go home without having something to eat. So thank you very, very much. Okay, so I'm hearing from Mama B. Miss B, she's saying let's play some music. MC, I think that's it for tonight. Thank you so very much as well to Mr. Nolan Allen. Yes, please give Mr. Allen a round of applause. Thank you so very much for the execution of your duties as MC. Thank you so much.